Karine Silva versus Poliana Botelho. This is a women's flyweight contest, and the UFC debutante, once again, is the favorite, minus 125 for Karine Silva. Now, Poliana Botelho is a plus 105 underdog, and I think the reason why is because she's had some lackluster performances, man. She lost a split decision to Luana Carolina. She lost to Jillian Robertson pretty convincingly. She lost to Cynthia Calvillo, but she does have wins against Lauren Mueller. She has another win before that, not the most notable, I should say, against Kondo. But for Karine Silva, man, she's a finisher. 14-4, 5-fight win streak, man. She has all 14 victories via finish, 100% finish rate. Like, these are the type of fighters, especially in the female division, that you want to have to bring new life. Now, what scares me about this matchup here, AJ, or what interests me, I guess I should say, is that Poliana Botelho, she has 3 wins in the UFC. 2 of her 3 wins in the UFC are actually in the women's strawweight division. So you're up a flyweight. You're fighting a Karine Silva who has fought at 115, 125, and 135. Clearly, she's going to be the bigger fighter in the cage. But when it comes down to the grappling exchanges, I mean, Botelho has 6 knockouts on her record, right? That's totally cool. Big finisher, big wide punches, all that good stuff. But I can't tell. Is she a boxer? Is she a Muay Thai fighter? Is she a kickboxer? Is she a grappler? Like, I can't really tell what she is. She has no submission victories. She seems to want to take the fight to the ground sometimes, but then sometimes, like, she does. Like, I don't know. So in your assessment, who is Poliana Botelho? What type of fighter is she?
It's a good question. I would say off the bat, more of a striker, more of a kickboxer, but at the same point, she does like to take the fight to the ground at certain points. So it's interesting because I have Silva as the better ground fighter. And that was the question I was going to ask you is who's better on the ground? Because that's when it comes down to, I think that's where this fight's going to end up, is on the ground. And I think Silva's the better ground fighter off of her back, but maybe Botelho's better on top. That's there to be debated. But I would say that Botelho, she's a weird one. She's an amoeba, man. She's one of those ones that I don't really know, because she's I would say just a mixed martial artist, because she kind of does a little bit of everything, but isn't a specific focus down on that one. You know what I'm saying? What would you classify her as?
Yeah, I would say that she's a kickboxer more than anything, man. That's kind of what we often see, but she does a lot of work with her hands, right? She has these good teep kicks. She's long, uses her frame well, but one thing that I don't like is when she opens up, when she's ready to open up, there is no technical jab, straight, dip. No, it's and for those who are just listening, she just kind of opens up with her shots, and she doesn't, you know what I mean? She doesn't set it up well or anything like that, man. So I think it's going to be something to definitely monitor, but then let's talk about Karine Silva real fast. So the thing about Karine Silva that I find so impressive is that she's a walk-forward fighter. Her aim is to either beat you up on the feet, get you to the ground, and start working some jiu-jitsu. But she has that heavy top control style that effectively nullifies a lot of her opposition's offense, man. And when it comes down to it, Poliana Botelho, we've seen her be a little too, willing to just lay on her back, you know what I mean? And not have the activeness, the same trait that Movsar Evloev has to get back up to the feet and be like, no, we're not doing this, you know what I mean? Like, we're going to fight our fight. Now, I did want to ask, though, man, if Botelho can somehow keep the fight on the feet, listen, 67-inch reach a pop, she's 5'8", so she's a little bit taller than a Karine Silva. Can she use some of those teep kips, some of that stuff to effectively outpoint Silva just at range, or do you think the fight inevitably will hit the mat?
Man, personally, I think the fight's inevitably going to hit the mat. So we're going to have to see we're going to get that question answered. Who's better on the ground? But for Botelho, she can utilize those strengths you're talking about to keep her at a distance. She is if I'm not mistaken, she is the longer fighter by like 3 inches. And with same reach, so that's kind of interdependent. But with those kicks, those ones she has where she does like those teep kicks, those front kicks, very snappy right there. I think that's her best method of victory, personally.
So the only thing that scares me in this matchup here, AJ, is that Karine Silva has 7 first-round finishes, right? And she, like I said, 100% finish rate, but 7 first-round finishes. So Botelho, I mean, listen, she has 2 decision wins. She's lost 3 decisions, though, so she knows what it takes to go the distance, right? So she has, 12 total fights, and 5 of them have gone the distance. So that's going to be the big difference here. Will Silva's gas tank hold up if she's too accustomed to getting these early finishes? I'm really not sure, man. But I think the ultimate factor on why you're going to pick one fighter versus another is the potential, right? The prospect of the potential. And I do think the potential of Karine Silva is a little bit higher than a Poliana Botelho currently at the moment, given the aggressiveness of her, right? Would you agree with me there?
Yeah, I can see what you're talking about. She has more room to grow, especially with what she hasn't or has proved in her past, you know?
But the only thing that really changes the game is that Poliana Botelho spoke about it in a pre-fight meeting. She said she's fighting for a job. So when someone's fighting for their job, they will do uncharacteristic things that we have not seen in previous fights to be able to keep their job. Now, I don't know. That means it's an X factor. It's a question mark. It's unknown. Can Poliana Botelho switch up her game to be able to have more effective game plan against Silva? I think the size inevitably will be too much personally. But we'll see. So let's talk props for it, man. The over and under for this one is 2.5 rounds. A TKO victory for Karine Silva plus 575, and decision is plus 200. So the odds makers are liking a decision for Silva. Now for Poliana Botelho, we're looking at plus 200 for a decision as well, plus 450 for the TKO. So they honestly think that a TKO would more likely come from Botelho than it would from Silva, and a decision is even across the board plus 200 for Silva and Botelho. So this is kind of indicative of what the money line is. Minus 125 Silva, plus 105 for Botelho. It's not like crazy skewed odds, but I feel like the odds makers to some degree view this more or less as a pick'em. How do you see it, AJ?
More or less as a pick 'em. I also went back and forth on this one too, because I can see Karine Silva getting it done, but Botelho fighting for her job, a lot more UFC experience, not going to be shuttered by the lights of the UFC anymore. Yeah, I can see this one being very, very close. What'd you say was that plus or the money for the KO, TKO on Botelho?
For Botelho, we're looking at plus 450.
Plus 450. Okay, all right. So I mean, I don't see it happening. I see a decision coming here, but I mean that's not a bad look for somebody who's going to be facing an opponent coming in. The opponent's very excited, always a finisher, gonna be opening up, gonna expose those holes. Yeah. Not a bad look for Botelho, but I'm still going with the Botelho decision personally.
All right, Botelho decision for you, man. So that means you're taking the over. We're looking at another decision win, and that's going to be a plus 200 on the prop for you. Now, for Karine Silva, I do want to say a decision is probably a likely outcome, but you know she's got those finisher traits and the finisher mentality. So I think that if she can get Botelho in a bad spot on the ground, she can probably do some damage, but the safest play, in all honesty, especially because this is a women's flyweight matchup, first UFC fight. What do we say? UFC is the place where streaks come to die, right? You can have the best knockout streak, best submission streak. You get to the UFC, it's just different, higher level opposition. Therefore, I'm going to rock with the decision win plus 200 for Karine Silva. So we have opposite picks, both are rocking with the same outcome. I'm going Karine Silva, and you are rocking with Poliana Botelho.